Wow, this looks amazing! If it's on the same level of detail as Witcher 2, it's gonna be one of the best video games in history. Run, sword. Not a lot of games can boast of popularity as big as The Witcher 3. The Witcher is more than just a best-selling franchise. It's a cultural phenomenon with a series of books, a TV adaptation, and an enormous fanbase behind it. And the studio responsible for such a massive hit even had Keanu Reeves promote the new game. But is the love for CD Projekt Red well earned, since they delivered on everything they promised? Or is it just smoke and mirrors? As many different gameplay mechanics and peculiarities from previous Witcher titles were simplified to a basic bare-bones experience, the game went from a niche thing to a best-selling action RPG. However, in the process it lost a large part of what made it unique. It was up to modders, like the creator of Witcher 3 Enhanced Edition, to mend the band-aids CDPR had to use and fix how streamlined the game is overall. Enhanced Edition is a complete gameplay rework of Witcher 3, which touches upon every game aspect, with changes ranging from combat to inventory management. The changes can be easily divided into 5 categories. The change that sticks out the most is the lack of magical numbers next to enemies' health bars. From pesky ghouls to armors and quests, nothing is level tied anymore. And skill points are no longer tied to levels as well. All stats have been adjusted to provide an overall more balanced and challenging experience, however keeping the sense of progression. You can do anything you want.
Deja vu, I just been in this place before. Higher on the street and I know it's my time to.
And no one's gonna stop you and say, no, your level is not high enough. So if you're willing to go and get a particular piece of equipment, there's nothing that can stop you.
You're back? So? Got the acid?
Use it carefully. It's about as caustic as things come.
Items themselves received quite a number of changes. Apart from new bolt types, we got a whole new class of throwing knives. They use the bomb slot and act as a short-range crossbow that you don't have to reload. Moreover, bolts are now limited too, so you need to either craft or buy them. Melee weapons were updated as well. Relics, for example, were changed starting from the way you obtain them to the effects they possess. You get a decrepit relic from a slain monster or a chest. And in order to restore it to a usable condition, you have to bring the sword to your favorite elvish blacksmith in Novigrad. Along with relics, a general rebalancing and a Diablo-like randomizing system were implemented. Now you can get a sharp sword, a heavy gambizon, and a calculated club. And some stats became a bit more important, specifically armor piercing. For example, you can't puncture golems' heavy armor without it, thus finally making hammers and axes a viable choice for a sword fight. But to improve the stats of your sword, you can either insert runes or invest into a new and shiny rune word. It was changed from an extravagance to a considerate investment. Either cover your sword in luminescent paint or have it constantly on fire. But keep in mind that you have to upgrade the rune word in sequence. Besides stats, weight values have been rebalanced across the board, from swords to your Grandma's Ash. And coins now take their toll on your weight limit as well. This way Geralt's backpack has been substantially cut, so now you can carry only a fraction of what you used to. Moreover, the stash has been transferred to Roach and limited for immersion purposes. Also, putting the armor on cuts the weight in half. And as you can now loot all items in a small area around you, the suicide rates of those who want to get every piece of loot have plummeted. But if you're careless, you will end up with your inventory full of chains, wires, and calculated clubs. However, because loot is now a lot more scarce, and the economy has been largely overhauled, your hobo daily routine of rummaging through nearby dumpsters became practically useless. Nevertheless, when you have to carry potions and oils that are no longer ethereal and neither are cheap Estus knockoffs, the weight limit will become a problem.
Know your fucking place, trash!
If you played the original game, then the enhanced alchemy system would be quite familiar to you. There are 6 basic substances: ether, vermilion, vitriol, quibrith, rebus, and hydrogenum, and 3 secondary substances: albedo, nigredo, and rubedo. So if all used ingredients have the same secondary substance, the potion gets a bonus effect. Ingredients can be distilled into primary substance or essence based on their quality. And it comes in 3 different tiers: contaminated, quality, and pure. These affect the tier of your chemical experiment. And sources can be poor, moderate, and rich. This affects the amount of ingredients you'll have to spend on a potion. And the quality works like this. Every ingredient has a value from 1 to 3. To get a consumable of the desired tier, all ingredients must have the same value. Or sometimes you can compensate with pure ingredients. However, in order to craft a consumable, you will need a base, and it must be the desired quality. Yet the quality of a potion mostly affects its duration and toxicity, which is quite important, since Geralt seems to have lost his fabled Witcher metabolism, and now can barely take 1 potion at a time, before he faces a chance of contracting toxicity fever. Not only does it apply negative effects like temporary blindness, it turns Geralt into a yacht-drunk dad. To mitigate this, prepare for battle beforehand, making use of meditation. While meditating, your safe toxicity threshold is higher, and the consumables have longer effects. It might prove useful since you'd want to chug as many of the reworked potions as you can. It might seem as a nerf at first glance, but it's actually more of a throwback to the previous games, where potions were actually quite impactful. Some, like Swallow and Thunderbolt, were simply tweaked to better resemble the potions of yore, and some had their abilities completely changed, along with most of the icons. Along with new potions, you can try yourself in the role of Le Chef de Cuisine de Rivière. Provided you've got the needed ingredients, you can cook a wide variety of delicacies, ranging from a baked apple to onion soup. The next big part that was reworked are mutagens. Every monster now has its own mutagen, and after you obtain more of the same class, they can be refined into archetypal mutagens. They can be either used for their stats or to brew a new cool decoction. In vanilla Witcher 3, they're practically useless because of their high toxicity and lame effects. To rectify this, all decoctions were overhauled. The total number of decoctions was reduced to 10. They became a lot less toxic, however only 1 can be ingested at a time. For example, the elemental decoction lets you kick large enemies in the balls. Oils would definitely make it easier to hunt down all those innocent creatures for their diverse mutagens. However, the way oils are implemented is devoid of anything even remotely resembling excitement. And what we've got is a 50% bonus damage button. But as it was already shown its place, new oils and their new clever, inventive effects were devised. New oils let you poison, freeze, lacerate, injure, and paralyze your enemies, destroy their armor along with your sword, make them susceptible to spontaneous combustions, give your sword a silver coating, and stop the annoying fucking wraiths from regenerating. And to get all the recipes, you'd have to travel across the world, turn every stone, and read every single book about monsters there is. But excessive brewing might leave you with a couple of federal charges and a couple of spare talent points. As talents are no longer tied to level ups, you get to upgrade them through performing various everyday actions. Fight, use signs, brew, consume. All talents were rebalanced and now can be upgraded up to 5 times. But pay close attention when upgrading, since most of the skills have seen a lot of changes. The most notable would be the Alchemy tree, which received extensive changes in every branch. Moreover, combat skills like Rand and Whirl are unlocked by default, however they are not as overpowered. The Frostbite mutation has been transferred to the art path as well, though the mutations themselves are now quite a pain in the ass to get, since they require multiple mutagens and upgrade points to unlock. Also, all unlocked talents are active at the same time, so there's no need to ration your talent slots. And with levels gone, talents and new equipment are meant to be the clear indicators of the player's progression. But a more helpful indication of it would be the number of times you have to load your save file in a single fight. And as you learn your way around the enhanced combat system, it should slowly but surely approach zero. And it definitely takes some time to get used to, since the mod introduces a myriad of changes, from the purpose of Geralt's stats to the way you fight. First and foremost, combat actions like attacks, blocks or dodges now cost stamina, which makes it
Just like Dark Souls!
However, as you spend more of your stamina, the attacks become progressively weaker. The same goes for Geralt's vitality, which makes sense, since if you're exhausted and about to bleed out, you won't be much of an effective killing machine. And another thing that affects your combat prowess is vigor. Coincidentally, you use it to cast signs, and the less vigor you have, the less potent your attacks and signs are. Moreover, as you get hurt, you lose stamina and vigor regeneration, some of your poise, and become less resistant to damage. And when the health goes down to 30%, you enter the injured stance, crippling your movement speed. Because losing adrenaline when you get beaten up didn't make much sense, it was reworked. Now you gain adrenaline when you get attacked, and the less health you have, the higher the gain is. At 100 points, you open your Sharingan and let the key do all the work. And as you get beaten up, each unblocked attack has a small chance of injuring you. Injuries are permanent negative effects that can only be removed by restoring your health back to full. A good way to inflict the aforementioned injuries would be special attacks. Pressing the attack button while blocking makes Geralt perform one. It can be either a kick or a double heavy attack. And the injuries range from limb injuries that make you stagger if you perform certain actions, head injuries that blind you and cripple your stamina regeneration, to body injuries that apply heavy bleeding. And bleeding along with poison have been reworked to provide you the best immersion. Bleeding can now go up to 15 stacks. Potions like Swallow or White Raffards, or the bandages that you can craft anytime, can help you deal with the annoying bleed stacks that you can get from simply being around sharp objects. And poison now only raises Geralt's toxicity and stacks up to 5 times. Using Golden Aureole in combination with White Honey will slowly recover poison stacks and remove accumulated toxicity. A great way to take a break in order to pull yourself together in a fight would be casting signs. They were given a bit of a rebalance and got what they By default, signs are bound to the keys from 1 to 5, so you can quickly cast any sign with a single press of a button. Ard was changed into a pure damage burst, so most enemies won't even flinch, thus leaving Igni as a damage-free crowd control sign. Erden was transformed into a cheat code for almost any fight. It enhances your reflexes, and after an enemy stayed inside the circle for a couple of seconds, it gets snared. Oxy no longer stops enemies when you cast it, and its alternative ability got a couple of fixes. However, Quen received the most changes. It got severely nerfed from a lifesaver that you can cast as much as you want to a situational skill with actual drawbacks. The sign no longer fully blocks incoming damage and should be treated as an outer layer of armor rather than a shield. It also halves stamina and vigor regeneration. Although you can do some cool stuff with it. If you time it right, you can perform a Quen counter. And considering that Quen is an electric shield, you should be careful around water. But even without Quen, you can now block and counter most of monster attacks. Poise affects what attacks you can block without staggering. Countering spares you any chance of stagger, but lets a chunk of damage through. There are 3 different types of counters, so you can finally kick a Drowner in the balls. You can switch between them mid-fight by using the distance modifiers when countering. And there are 3 distance modifiers. And depending on what targeting type you use, you can do some crazy stuff with the attacks, like bending them to get behind the enemy. Not to skip one of the most distinctive features of Enhanced Edition, aiming your attacks with the camera. It can be best described as you having crosshairs in the middle of the screen that serve as an indication of where your attacks would go. And keep in mind that the armor you use affects your speed and the strategy you employ, which adds to the immersion. You definitely won't be running circles around the enemies while wearing your full suit of armor. Not only it affects your movement, it also impedes your attack and evasion speed. The sole fact of it being slower should make dodging far less viable. However, dodges and rolls now almost completely lack the invincibility they used to offer, and only a fraction of the animation has iframes. You can tweak it by using the alternative dodge frames from the download page. There is also a safe dodge angle. In simple words, you become invincible only if you dodge away from the attack and not straight into it. Instead, you can sprint across the battlefield as a brand new evasive tactic. But as a player, you should approach it as a completely new experience. Although at first it might strike you as Dante Legend hardcore, it doesn't get much harder after that. Sure, at one point you might want to give up.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
But once you learn your way around the combat system, your desire to end it will fall by at least a half.
Is that a gram?
New mod. What do you think?
Whoa, very nice. Look at that.
Picked it up from the Nexus yesterday. Good mod. That's enhanced. And the gameplay is something called Combat Overhaul. It's very cool, Baraba, but that's nothing.
Look at this. That is really nice.
The dodge anti-spam system. Oh my god. Geralt can even throw up now.
Something wrong?
Baraba.
You're sweating.